and you can do that.
Oh man, that's
How
great.
wild is that, right?
That's fantastic.
But that'll never ever work in here because these are panels. To process that, if you are using Revit, if you're using BIM, every single design team should be doing this. I've got a lot of my architect friends out there. You are actually the ones who need to hear this more than anything. But even if you draft everything, you should still keep the model on in the view.
Exactly.
We do have a couple comments in the event, so I'll start there, and then we can open it up for questions and whatnot. But those who actually took the time to write the comments in there, I'll jump onto those first. So I think, Emil, since your question about the sloping wall and stuff was one that also came out of a topic, I think I'll jump onto that one first. I know the question was about sloping the wall, but it's also an opportunity to look at maybe different ways of modeling this type of wall, because there are different approaches you can take to it. So what I'll do quickly is maybe just run through one or two or three of the ways that I initially think of that you can use to, or three of the ways you can approach modeling this type of wall, and then show you sort of how to slope it. So what I meant by a generic wall is really, let's just say, I mean, I don't know how thick they are, but 12 inches, perfect. So,
Yes.
So I'll just start with a generic 12-inch wall. Okay, concrete panel wall. So let's just call this concrete panel wall. So just took a generic wall, duplicated it. I'm going to go to edit type so we can see this thing. Here it is here. And we're going to call this concrete. I'll just use something that's default for materials. So I'm just assigning a material. We could use precast if we want. Doesn't really matter. You can see it's it's 12 feet. I don't want to do any wrapping. Don't really care about that. Okay. So the unfortunate part about walls with reveals is, so I'll just draw this real quick. So I just drew that wall. If I go in 3D, here's our lovely wall. The unfortunate part about vertical reveals in Revit is that you can't build those into the wall type. So if these were horizontal reveals, I'm just going to set my graphic settings because I'm anal like that. So when it comes to horizontal reveals, you could easily build those into the wall type. So if I went back to my wall type, edit my structure, I can say I want to add a reveal, and I can use different sizes. I'm just going to use a default, which is a brick. And I'm going to say it's 4 feet from the top. If I zoom in here a little bit, you can see that's essentially my reveal, that little knuckle there. And that is going to continue forever and ever and ever when I draw this wall, which is awesome, right? And it's useful on a lot of different occasions. But that's not helpful for what you're doing. And unfortunately, there's no way to build that reveal into a default wall type.
Yeah.
So the first approach that you could take in simplifying this type of wall, if you had to model it, is, let me just get rid of the reveal, is a simple surface pattern. And this would work perfectly for all of your graphics, elevation sections, etc. And so what you would do for that is you'd make a material. So if you want to use the concrete precast, you can, but I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to call it concrete precast vertical joint or something like that. If you want to say vertical joint at 12 feet, whatever. And you can see I can just use a surface pattern. Instead of showing it as sand, I can go in here. Actually, pretty neat now with 2020 and 2021. I can leave sand if I want to because it doesn't look bad. I'm going to make it a little gray. And I can add a background, or vice versa. I can use sand as the background, but I can add 2 surface patterns now, which is pretty sweet. So I'm going to add sand maybe to the background because I think that would look better that way. So it still looks concrete, but then I can create. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but you can't do 2 model patterns in Revit now. So they give you the ability to apply 2 patterns to a surface or even a cut, but I believe you can only do 1 model pattern. So if you notice, I think if I select, or the model pattern can only be foreground, something like that. But either way, just be wary of that. I think the model pattern can only be foreground. So I'm going to use a model pattern. The reason I'm using a model pattern is those allow you to adjust the joints once they're there. It's not just like a hatch where it is what it is. These you actually can select the pieces and move them around. But I'm actually going to create a new one. And I'm going to call this vertical concrete joint or vertical concrete, whatever. And then you can just set it, because it's a simple one. You can set it to 90 degrees. And what'd you say, 12 feet?
Yes.
So I can do 12 feet or 100 and whatever inches. And it looks goofy because you don't actually see it there, but I'm going to apply it. And so now you can see my foreground pattern is a joint at 12 feet. And then my background pattern is sand. And my cut pattern is concrete. Cool.
And it's background that cannot be a model pattern.
Oh, so it's not one or the other. It's you just can't do it for background.
You can't do it. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Thanks.
So now you can see we have a repeating pattern every 12 feet. So yes, it's not individual pieces right now, right? This wall is just not individual pieces, but graphically for your elevations and sections, this is going to look correct. And because it's a model pattern, and notice the sand is there too, which is pretty sweet. If I press tab, I can actually select these joints and move the entire pattern. I can use the move command or just drag them like I'm doing. So that's cool, because if you had a door in here and you wanted to align this to the door, you can actually do that.
Okay, cool.
So that's one approach to it. So I'll show you another two approaches, and then we'll talk about the slanting. All right. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually just removing the pattern again. So I have two types now. I have one that doesn't have a pattern and one that does. So for this one, if you want to just add reveals, so let's say these aren't individual units, but they're actually revealed and they're vertical, not horizontal. You pretty much only have one choice, which is using a wall reveal. And the downfall here is that you're manually placing these. So if I click wall reveal, I can create a reveal type. And so by default, this is what it's set to. I just went to edit type. You can see it's this profile. You can create your own profiles. If I'm just going to use one brick for now, I'm not going to go down that road yet. I can duplicate this and say I want reveal 1, reveal 2. I can use different profiles for each reveal, but let's just leave it as one brick for now. And you'll notice up here, you can do horizontal or vertical. So horizontal is going to give you exactly what we did before. If I go vertical, I can actually do vertical. And as you can see, it's a nightmare. So if anyone's ever dealt with this, God bless you, dealing with like multiple reveal patterns in a wall, because look, I can't click the same wall without restarting the reveal or copy pasting, because it's hosted to that wall already. It's this bizarre thing. So I can't click the same wall again. If I press escape, I can click this reveal though, and I believe I can copy paste it. So I can just copy paste it and like this.
Can you array it?
I believe you can array it too. Yeah, so AR is array. Oh, maybe not. Look at that. You can only array it in the direction here, which doesn't make any sense at all.
Right.
Right? Why would you array it this way if that's a reveal going through? So no, you can't even array it. But what it's doing is you can see it's actually putting a reveal in your wall. This reveal is modifiable. You can do stuff like, I guess that's why you could array it, because then you can make them shorter and then duplicate it that way. But
Is it, Jeff, is it possible to do a curtain wall mullion that is also a void that would cut the wall? That way you can do a nice grid pattern and all of that.
So technically no, but what you could do, so that's the reveal option. So this is option sort of number 2, and as you can see, it works, and the reveals will go with the wall, I believe, right? So when we do the angle, you'll see it'll work fine. But as you can see, you're managing individual reveals on their own. So curtain wall is the third option, right? And this is because we are doing something that is, well, actually, I shouldn't say that's the third option, because technically there will be a fourth. But because we're doing something that's repetitive with a grid type of pattern, curtain wall makes sense. And so what you would do is you would utilize the curtain wall tool. So I just went down to wall. I'm going to start with a storefront just because. Here's a storefront tool. And I've talked about this numerous times, but curtain walls, they're made for this, but the tool itself is extremely useful for so many other things, because what you're doing is you're able to host objects in a gridded system that you can control. So it's extremely powerful. And if you've seen any of my tutorials on like wood slats or metal panels and all that stuff, there's just so much you can do.
Metal roof.
Yeah.
roofs. I mean, yeah,
Seam.
exactly. Standing seam metal roof. You can do studs if you want with it, right? I mean, it's just extremely, extremely powerful. So when it comes to actually making this a, one of these precast walls, I'm going to make a new type. So I'm just edit type, duplicating. I'm going to call this precast wall. And so you have the ability to build in some settings here. So my vertical layout is what I'm really focused on. That's going to be 12 feet on center. I'm not going to have a horizontal layout, so I'm going to say none. And then this is where it's sort of you have to work within the range of the tool a little bit. So if you want to have a void in between the spaces, you either need to build it into the curtain panel, meaning that you'd have to have an offset from the edges, and that wouldn't be there, or you place a mullion, and then the panel will adjust based on where the mullion is, just like it's doing with the glass right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a 1-inch square, and then we'll talk about how you can kind of use or not use mullions to get what you need. So then last but not least, I can also apply my curtain panel. You'll notice that I can not only use panels, but I can also use walls, which is pretty sweet. So I can go in and I can use my 12-inch concrete wall. Where is it? Precast? What did I call that? Panel. Here we go. Panel wall, no pattern. Oops. So I'm going to use that exact wall type, but now I'm placing it as a panel within my system, which is pretty wild. I'm going to click OK. And now you can see we have a wall. So I do have mullions here, so we need to do something about that. I didn't turn off my border mullion, so I should have put none for those because we don't want any around the border. None. And you also want to build as much as you can into the type, because then it's much more flexible, right? So if I create it similar, I can just keep drawing these, right? And you could see, actually, look at that. Huh.
Whoa.
Paul, remember your question with the cleanup?
Yeah.
Why is this? I wonder, because these are wall types, if this is cleaning up this like that.
Yeah,
I'm actually,
cleaning up nice.
Right? I did not expect that to happen. Look at that.
Yeah. Huh.
You talking about that half wall you were trying to make?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. I wonder if there's a way we can fudge Revit into thinking that it's a wall or something. We'll have to look into that. But
that's right. It's going to be. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Maybe there's a way we can manage it. So what's happening here is you can see there's still this 1-inch mullion here. So there's a couple things you can do. First, what we want to do is possibly just make this the depth that we want. So there's a couple ways we can edit that. The easiest way and the best way, because then you know where the stuff is if you go under families and you roll down to curtain wall mullions. You can see there's all these types, and there's a rectangular type, and then there's the 1-inch square. So I can just duplicate this and call it spacing or precast space, whatever.
Expansion joint material, which you probably want to call it.
Well, you know what? That's not a bad point, because the reality is it isn't going to be a void, huh? It is going to be.
You're going to have an expansion joint in all of those, so that's typically going to be anywhere from 1/2 inch to 1 inch, maybe even more sometimes. So it's probably good to have it there.
Yeah.
Just call it what it is.
So, and we can give it its own material. So it's aluminum here. We can say expansion joint. We can make it whatever color we want. I'm going to make it black.
Yeah.
And then, so you can see the thickness, and then there's width on one side, width on the other side. So thickness is when you're looking down in plan view. It's your depth, so to speak. It's kind of, and that's just how mullions are designed in Revit. I don't like the terminology myself, but thickness is actually when you're looking down at it. And then width on one side is when you're looking at elevation. It's this side and this side of the curtain panel. So the thickness, the expansion joint, I don't know how thick would it be on this 12-inch wall. What do we think?
Just say 11 1/4.
So we'll do 11 1/4. Oops, that's not.
They'll have a sealant on the others, on the ends, basically.
And then we'll do 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch. So it's a total of 1/2 for now. So now there we go. So now here's what I'm going to do though, just for fun. So
nope, Jeff, you need another 1/4 inch, not 1/2 inch there.
Oh crap! Thank you. my microphone is blocked. The only part of my keyboard it's blocking is the number pad. So I'm like, oh crap. So one of the things I can do here, and this is going to roll back to Chris, your question about can you make it a void? I'm actually going to I'm going to use one of these parameters here, or I can use it in the type comments. But for now, I'm going to use it in here, and I'm going to use. I don't know if I want to use type mark, assembly code, something that I wouldn't necessarily use for something else. But for now, I'm just going to use description and make it easy. And I'm going to say hide me, just for fun. So I'm going to add a description called hide me. All right. So now I need to first set that mullion to be the type that I want to use in this curtain wall. So I have to go back to edit type. And remember, we use 1 inch here. You'll notice that our expansion material is there now. So I'm going to say expansion and expansion. So notice even though I don't have horizontals, I'm still applying it because, again, what's really, really cool about this, so as you can see, if I go TL on my keyboard and hit in line, you can see.
There's your void.
There's there. So we got our little.
You have to offset that a little bit.
Yeah.
But
you get the idea.
There's your void. Wow.
So there's your void, right? But here's the cool thing. So because we set it as the void in the other direction, it's a curtain panel. If for some reason you slice them this way too, look at that.
No.
Right? We're getting that, which is pretty
What
neat.
What happens when you put let's say you wanted to put a door in between the two panels? Is that going to clean up okay, or is that going to be something custom that has to be done?
No. So right. So that this is the downfall, right? So this is a wall. This is a wall, right? This is a curtain wall. Okay, curtain walls, right? There's only certain ways that you can put doors in them, right? And so when it comes to putting a door in this, you're going to run into a few issues. Although I will show you that because these are walls, it's unique. So when you draw a storefront, it's pretty wild. So when you draw, and this goes back to that cleanup thing too. So when you draw a storefront, right, you can't put a door or a window on it because these are panels, right? These are not walls. But we're actually putting wall types in here. This is a physical wall type. So guess what? You can actually do that.
Whoa.
And you can do that.
Oh man.
How wild is that, right?
That's fantastic.
But that'll never ever work in here because these are panels. But that brings me back to why this must be working, because these are just walls and they're cleaning up. So you're getting the benefit of this grid system, but you're using a wall within it, which is pretty wild when you think about it.
That's fabulous.
Can you move that wall over to the joint and just see what happens? Besides an error, maybe.
You mean one of the like a regular wall?
No.
The
In
door?
the curtain wall. You just made it.
Yeah.
Because it's two walls, it doesn't know which one to host.
So it's hosting to this one. It's not cleaning up that one. So how you would manage that? There's a few different things you could do. One is you could try trimming the joint work around it. Otherwise, you're going to start doing some weird stuff. I would say trimming the joint work is your best bet. Which the second you start doing that, you just have to be wary because now it's not using a 12-foot on center. It's custom grids, right? So I can go in here and I can say, let me place. Let's do this first. Let's remove. Well, I'm going to need another grid here. So I'm going to place a grid first here. I'm going to do one segment so it doesn't blow up everything. Right? Get out of here. Try that again. One segment. I'm going to place it up here so we can see it. It's fine. It's saying it wants to delete some crap, of course. So then I can add. Oh, cool. We got more people coming in. Look at that. And I apologize. Let me just double check. Okay. So for some reason, Zoom doesn't always tell me when people in the waiting room. So I apologize if anyone was sitting there for too long. All right. So let me select my grid now. Add another grid line on this side. Then we're going to do a curtain grid. We'll do one. And we'll have to do it somewhere in this direction. Or are they only going to let me do two? Ooh, there we go. Notice how I'm below it. It's just one of those stupid things. You need to see the edge of the grid. Delete. And now you're slowly getting to the point where you can now clean this stuff up, remove the other grid. So as you can see, it gets pretty gnarly. Try Try that again. There we go. Unfortunately, you have to create it to delete it, because now you can create this thing here. And then for the sake of visual, I'm gonna leave the bigger than the door. I can unpin UP on my keyboard, or unpin it right there, and then press delete, or not. You're not gonna let me delete it? I might have to go to empty system panel. Oof, that's rough. And then the door is gonna disappear because it's hosted to that one. Yeah, so that gets fishy, right? So you're gonna have to do one side is empty, the other side is not, and then you have to clean up around it, pull this together and stuff. But hopefully you don't have that condition.
Oh yeah, I have that condition. That's why I asked.
I mean, it's still probably better than some other choices, but I mean, you could see how you can work around to it. The other option would be you can edit the profile of this and make a wall, and then put the door in the wall instead, or something like that. I mean, there's sort of other options, but I mean, that's just one of the downfalls of using it's pros and cons of either one, right? Because here, obviously,
I would think you could do that pretty easily by just editing the profile and then set another standard 12-inch wall in there, and then post.
You're still and that's the whole pro and con thing, right? Because you're still now in this method, you're managing a manual placement of grids. The other method, you're managing two walls that you have to make sure you can select and move if you modify things. Just paying attention to that. But